Hey guys, I'm Sammyboy, and this is my mid lane meta guide for 7.15. Mid lane right now is in kind of a weird spot, where because of the fact that the towers have become so close to the lane, a couple different things have happened, and we've seen the mid lane become more of a solo lane, and more of a kind of static passive lane, where there's not too much going on in the lane, and you're more kind of just pushing the lane into the enemy, and the enemy's pushing the lane back into you. Mid lane's kind of become this lane that's pretty easy to lane, and it's kind of difficult to get forced out of the lane and hard to get punished. And this is due to the kind of slingshot effect, as I like to call it, where if you're in a bad lane, so let's say you're playing Visage for example, and you're not a great laner, you're not a good laner by any means actually, and you have a tough time being able to get last hits and being able to secure yourself farm and prevent the enemy from getting denies. What you can do is that you constantly want to wave pull, you want to pull the wave all the way into your tower, and because the tower is so close to your lane, it's pretty easy to do this. And after you pull the lane into your tower, I know you're going to be missing last hits, but the tower is going to kill the creeps and prevent the enemy from getting denies. And so what's going to happen is that the lane is going to push into the enemy tower. And after that happens, your creeps are going to die under his tower, it's going to be difficult for him to get last hits, and your next wave is also going to be able to push into his tower because of how the lanes work. Because, you know, the timer is going to come on, your creeps are going to be walking in lane, they're going to eventually go and hit his tower because you've pushed your previous creeps into his tower already, and they're still kind of there, they're still kind of tanking the tower. And then your wave dies, and his wave, that's now under his tower, stays alive. And after that, because his wave stays alive, that wave slingshots back into your tower, so on and so forth. So you get this kind of slingshot effect where your creeps go into his tower, preventing his creeps from being able to go any further in the lane, and then because his creeps were so far back and were under his tower, his creeps then come into your tower, which prevent your creeps from going up, etc. and etc. And it creates this kind of slingshot where both players are going to be able to get a good amount of experience and not too many last hits. And this kind of prevents like this lane dominating thing where it prevents mid laners from being able to completely zone one another, and it prevents mid laners from really able to lane dominate. You can still definitely lane dominate and do better than the enemy, but it makes these heroes like Visage laneable because they're not able to get zoned from levels 1 to 5 too easily. By doing this as well, it makes it really difficult for the enemy to actually like outlane you or kind of outplay you because the lane's always going to be under one of your towers. And if it's under your tower, it's really difficult for the enemy to make any plays on you. And if it's under their tower, it means that it's kind of on you. If you want to try to make plays on them, it's going to be difficult. And you can, but it's going to be hard. So you kind of want to just play it back and play it safe and not make too many plays. Along with that, it's kind of the way the mid lane is structured again. It's really difficult to gank the mid lane unless you walk really far up into the enemy's tower. So it kind of creates this situation where if both players kind of play back and let the enemy farm under their tower, it's really difficult for either one to die, and it's really difficult to make outplays happen. That said, if the enemy, does decide to walk up really far under your tower or really far up, it is possible to outplay them or kill them. Like, don't feel scared to go for kills or something like that if you see the opportunity. It's just the way the mid lane is kind of structured. It makes going for those plays or making those plays really difficult. So if I'm advising someone playing the mid lane, I would say that don't try to make any of these super risky plays under the enemy tower. It generally won't work out. Maybe someone, a support, is going to rotate behind you. You're just kind of in a risky position. It's really easy right now to static the lane and kind of just win the lane through, like, he's going to have 20 CS, I'm going to have 40 CS, It's not totally about completely zoning someone, just about, beating them enough in lane to be able to pressure their tower later or to be able to rotate later and be a higher level than them. Not only that, but it's also really important to remember that you shouldn't really be leaving your lane before maybe 10 minutes. Leaving your lane in the mid lane is super detrimental, especially against all these heroes that really like to build Ring of Aquila and like to push your tower. Holding that mid lane tower is super important to your game, so make sure that you don't leave your lane and go gank and then lose your tower. I'd say it's more important to hold your lane than to actually go for a gank, even if you see a good opportunity for a gank. If you plan to leave your lane, maybe have a support come and hold your lane for you, or something like that. But that generally can't really happen until maybe 8 minutes plus. So, like I already mentioned, it's really important that you don't really try to gank until at least 8 to 10 minutes when you maybe want to go fight for the bounty runes, or fight and take the enemy safe lane tower. Also make sure that when you're building these items like Ring of Aquila, or maybe you're playing Death Prophet or Dragon Knight or even Viper, try to pressure the enemy tower. Instead of actually trying to pressure the enemy out of lane when you have this slingshot effect into his tower, just try to hit his tower a couple times. This kind of chip damage on the tower really adds up, and over time you're going to be able to take that mid lane tower. So maybe by 10 minutes you'll have taken the tower, and then it's a good opportunity for you to be able to rotate out of the lane and do whatever you want. Generally, after you take the enemy mid lane tower, you can do a couple different things. Sometimes you can maybe passive the lane out if you want to prevent the enemy from farming at all, but around 10 minutes, it's generally not a good idea to do that. What I like to do is I just like to push the lane as far as I can into the enemy and force them to kind of respond to it, and then I like to rotate to a different lane to take a tower. Generally, taking the enemy safe lane's tower is the best tower to take because of how it enables your safe laner. So after you take the mid lane tower, even if the mid lane is at a point where you can push it in and they can't really do anything about it, or maybe you have a support take your lane, it's really good to rotate to the enemy safe lane tower at around 10 minutes with your safe laner to try to take that tower. And then after you take that tower, you can come back to the mid lane, farm it out, farm jungle, and just try to farm efficiently around the map. Due to the fact that the towers are so close to the lane as well, it's pretty easy to be able to kind of pressure these towers with chip damage. Committing to a tower means that maybe you don't even fully commit to getting the tower, but you use your DK ulti and you just try to hit the tower whenever you have the opportunity to. Or you pop DP ulti, and instead of just trying to, fully commit behind the enemy tower and dive the enemy, you just try to get some chip damage and maybe get 50% of the tower's HP. It's not always about fully taking the tower, just about using your spells and using your, chip damage to kind of get the tower down and consistently do damage to it over time. Because the tower is so close to the lane, it's really difficult to wrap around if you're kind of sitting at the far edge of the tower. It means that it's really hard for the enemy to play up on you, and it's really hard for supports to gank you. So it kind of puts you in a safe position where you can consistently get chip damage on the tower while not putting yourself at too much of a big risk. Thanks so much for watching, and make sure to check out the rest of the top mid laners for 7.15.